What makes a star? That special person who has vision and the ability to execute. Well, INSEAD professor of leadership development, Manfred Kets Vries, has been stargazing for some time now, and he joins me to discuss his paper on star performers. Manfred, welcome to INSEAD Knowledge.
I'm very happy to be here.
All right, the title of the paper that we wanted to discuss is actually called Star Performers, Paradoxes Wrapped Up in Enigmas, which I believe is the way Churchill referred to Russia. So what do you actually mean by that?
I'm very wary about people say you have to do this, 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 and this. And very often they present paradoxes. That's the reason I talk about enigmas, puzzles, sphinxes, and things like that. And what I've seen is very often, for example, you have to be a holistic thinker as a leader, but you also have to be atomistic. Sometimes you have to go in deep in detail. So they have the big picture, but you have the right as the leader to go deep down into the organization to say, okay, I want to have a feel what's going on. Something doesn't feel right. Let me have talk with different people, which is sometimes difficult in certain organizations because they're so hierarchical, and other people tend to object to that. You need to be a little bit of you need to have the ability to positively reframe things. When you say things are bad, people get depressed. And if the CEO is depressed, everybody gets depressed because it's very contagious. But you also have, so you have to be, you need this ability, and maybe sometimes Americans are better in that than Europeans, but you also have to be realistic. You cannot be too unrealistic, people don't believe you anymore. The same thing is with a very famous, or a very well-known personality dimension, introversion, extroversion. So we have the illusion that leaders are extroverts. They are not really. I mean, I did a lot of tests with leaders, and in general they're closet introverts, but they have learned pseudo-extroverts. They've learned to become extroverts. So, which is not bad because they also have a reflective ability, but they know how to reach out. They've learned that. Now, as I said, it very much depends on the culture. If you are a leader in Malaysia, very different ambiance than, for example, being a leader in Holland, given the contextual complexity of certain cultures. And the same thing with the industry, as I said earlier. To run a steel mill is different from running a complex organization with very highly educated people like McKinsey.
But not every star performer is necessarily a CEO. I mean, he or she can be within a team. So how do you differentiate between a star performer and just a good worker?
I guess at this day and age, star performers have to also be, star performers are quickly in the light line. You talk about charisma, but charisma and narcissism get very quickly confused.
How so?
No, what I mean by that is that we all need a solid dose of narcissism to be able to function, although quite a few leaders are actually quite insecure, and it's a compensatory mechanism, so it's a reactive mechanism. Some people are very good in their skin, but some people are such reactive narcissists to become pains in the neck, because it becomes too much me, and you get a great too sense of entitlement. Now, what happens sometimes that people seem to be pretty decent team players, but the moment they're in a position of power, they may derail. And I've written extensively about the dark side of leadership we all have. That's the reason we need checks and balances to be able to prevent that. And also you have some look like star performance, but basically they turn out to have rather psychopathic tendencies. And it's very hard for us to imagine a psychopath, because psychopaths have no sense of shame or guilt or an empathy. It's like some part of their frontal lobes are not functioning properly. I think it's 1% of the population have psychopathic tendencies, and it's probably 4 or 5 times as much in senior management levels. So they may look like star performance, but are they there in for the long haul or just for short wins and move on and move on and move on and leave? Actually, when you really look carefully, disasters behind. So it is the element of reflective leadership is to me, and there are not that many, by the way, to find those kinds of people.
When you are in a room, maybe one of your classes or just a new environment, what do you use to spot a star performer?
Actually, it's an interesting question, and I don't have a straight answer for it. To it. I run this CEO seminar, and then the first week I asked myself, if I would be an entrepreneur and I want to have somebody, or I have some resources available. I want somebody to help me with the business. Who would I pick? And again, it's also a question of complementarity. Because, for example, psychopathic individuals who are really the bullies and whatever, they seem like star performers or pseudo-star performers. The people who notice it quickly are the people under them, not the people over them. They're very good in managing upward. So the ones you actually have to talk to and get feedback from are the people at lower levels. That's the reason, I think the popularity of 360s and things like that, at least in certain cultures, national cultures, gives you some reflection of what is really living there, how the people really are. Because very often the people at the top, who have to pick out the star performance, make mistakes. They think those are star performers, while they actually might be quite unpleasant individuals in general.
Can you give me an example of a rising star or a star performer that sticks in your mind, and some of the paradoxes that you may have found in him or her? And are there women star performers as well?
Women have a harder time, actually, because there's some more pressures on them, which men don't have to deal with. And also, in general, the default model of organization is masculine, and something should be done about it. But men are very reluctant to let go, and consciously or unconsciously. I mean, I've met many rising stars in my class. I mean, I get regular emails that I'm now the CEO. I saw, there was one person in my last year. I mean, the man wanted to be, his goal in life was being one of the FTSE 100 companies, as quickly the CEO of that. And so I got an email that was actually a month ago. Ta-da! I'm there. And people warned him also about his ambition. It was really very. I think he had to get it out of his system. That's basically what it comes down to. So let him run it. But there is a high price he might pay in this case, which is his family. That's my feeling, because he parked his family somewhere else, nice house, etc. But he's not going to be available because he commutes, he comes to weekends. And it's not always the best when you have small children and things like that. But this is part of it, and I think he's aware of the downside. So hopefully he makes the best of so you pick them out very quickly. For example, maybe the person we talked about another time, where very quickly be seen that this person was a rising star. It's very clear. And you can ask about his motivations. You didn't ask about his motivation. I have a good idea what made him a rising star, which is actually quite ironic. I mean, very often, in this case, it's more reactive, than meaning that he had to overcome something and prove something to a number of people who are important to him. And he did. He became a very successful entrepreneur. And you wonder if certain incidents didn't have happened in his life, actually from a more psychological point of view, or from a reconstructive developmental point of view, would have been a rising star, or would have been a hippie somewhere in Goa.
Rising star
smoking pot.
If you wanted to do a little self-test about, am I a stellar performer? What are there questions I should be asking myself
I wonder if you should ask the questions to that person. You maybe should ask the question to other people, because it's we are fantastic in self-delusion. We are the center of the world. We are the center of the world, and we have to be very careful about that we don't delude ourselves. And I've had too many people who think they are great, and everybody else tells them they are the pits. But it's really the environment who speaks for themselves. Like element of people who have lots of visions. It's good to have ideas, but vision without action is a hallucination. So do they have vision, but also can act it out? Can do something, can execute? Because actually one of the most important things of a leader is not just dreaming. It's important to dream, no question about it. But leaders are merchants of hope, to quote Napoleon once more, but it's also the execution which counts. Are they good in executing, getting things done? What has this person done? And the person may delude him or herself, but you come back to other people to tell, this is a fantastic job. He has this project, we sent him to Timbuktu, and he did it. He really set up this factory, or whatever one might be, or he set up his sales office. He's really great. That's important. So the self-test would not be with me. I would go with others.
Okay, let me end by asking you why you decided to write this paper. What do you want people to get out of it?
It's paradoxical. Now, there are certain patterns which I was trying to indicate. I said action, reflection, holistic, atomistic, execution, divergent, convergent, introversion, extroversion, those paradoxes, positivism, positive realism. Those things are important, but it's very conditional on culture and industry. And when people come to me and say, this is, I don't know. But one thing is, you know, when, in the end, it's like a laboratory. And you give me a group of leaders together, and I can tell you probably, which is partially my right brain probably, after a week having them in my class, I say, okay, every time an issue comes up, this person gives a very sensible answer. I think this is a person I would like to have on my team. And that's partially intuition, which is of course another form of reasoning, but there's probably also logic to it. And I try to indicate that a little bit about, in a little bit of a developmental, clinical sense in this paper.
Well, thank you very much, Manfred Kets, for being with us on INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you very much.